listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and along here with me, as always, is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So we have another blowout victory from the Bulldogs to recap, Justin. I think we'll be able to move through that fairly quickly. There's not a lot. There's a lot of points, a lot of good things, not a lot to say. Otherwise, the Bulldogs took care of business, as we all expected and had hoped. No real issues to report. Things look good. Wilson got their 8th win of the season, moved to 8-1 on the year, still rolling through the LL League Section 1 schedule. But we have reached the end, the final game of the regular season. The last guaranteed matchup is here. We're going to preview Week 10 in all its glory. And it has come to fruition what everyone had said would happen and we had hoped would happen. The Week 10 matchup against Manheim Township down in Neffsville for the Section 1 championship. Both Wilson and Manheim Township undefeated going in league play in this game.
Yeah, the powers that be, they know what they're doing. I think it's 3 of the 5 sections in LL have a de facto championship game this weekend.
Yeah, so Section 1 is the big one on Friday for us. Wilson at Manheim Township. Then I believe it's Section 3, which has Wyomissing hosting Lancaster-Strasburg, both undefeated in league play. LS is also undefeated overall, just like Manheim Township is. That Wyomissing hosting LS will happen on Saturday afternoon. And then also Friday night will be Schuylkill Valley, Lancaster Catholic, both coached by Bruce Harbaugh currently or previously. And I believe it was noted that the last 2 years, Schuylkill Valley could have won outright championships if they would have just beaten Lancaster Catholic in this last game of the season. And the Crusaders beat Schuylkill Valley both times. Once, I believe, kept SV from winning any part of a championship, and the other forced a share of the title. Sure. So if Schuylkill Valley wins this time, they are the outright champions. So 3 of 5 sections have the final game of the regular season to decide who gets at least part, if not the entire crown. So, and this is where obviously Wilson wants to be.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to
you want to be playing games that with
a lot on the line
or extra meaning come end of October and into November.
Yep, and because of what they're able to do early in the season in their non-league slate, and then a couple LL1 matchups that they were able to tread water and get through, they've made it to this point and now can decide their own fate, which is always you want it in your hands. You don't want someone else to decide it for you. So we will preview that game against Manheim Township here coming up in a little bit. We will also take more of a deep dive into the power ratings and the playoff format and schedule. But first, we will recap the Lancaster-McCaskey victory momentarily. But first, I want to thank our sponsors here at the Bulldog Hour. Of course, always presented by Mays Sandwich Shop. Thanks to my dad, Bill Mays. And Mike Drago at MikeDragosports.com. I will be lending my hand not just for Wilson on Friday night at Manheim Township. I'm also going to be a second shooter at the Wyomissing game. Going to take my camera over there and give some backup photography and head over and watch Coach Steve O'Neill and the Wyomissing Spartans try to win their section championship against Lancaster-Strasburg. When I texted Coach O'Neill that I would be coming over, he said could be a pretty fantastic Friday, Saturday for Berks County.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
All 3 of those games peg Berks teams against Lancaster-Lebanon teams, and it would be nice for the county to come out on top. So we'll see what can happen. We'll get 2 of those on Friday and then 1 of them on Saturday. White Star Tour is also a multi-year sponsor now of the program, and we appreciate their support as well. Justin, one of our new buddies back on board for the Bulldog Hour. We got to finally meet with our pal Andy Herr yesterday. Or on Friday night. He was at the Wilson McCaskey game, and he decided to re-up his donation to the show. And we
Much appreciated
his support as always. And he always has great things to say, not only about the Bulldog Hour, but also the Wilson football program in general. And it was great to see him, even if it was too short.
Yeah,
I honestly, I like when we see him at away games because I feel like we have more time to hang out and chat. So if that doesn't happen this year, hopefully next year, because he usually meets us in Landisville at Hempfield. So we'll see what happens. See, Justin and I are always thinking about Wilson football a year from now.
That's right.
All right. So thanks to all the sponsors again: May's Sandwich Shop, White Star Tours, MikeDragosports.com, the Miller family, Andy Herr, and our 3 anonymous donors. We've got another live show on the docket next Sunday, October 27th for our regular season recap and a District 3 6A playoff preview. So we'll recap the game against Manheim Township and look ahead to the playoffs, as we will know who Wilson's playing and then who they could play in the future should they continue to win. But that just means, Justin, we are at the end of the schedule.
It's crazy.
There it is, October 25th at Manheim Township. So here we are.
Hard to believe we're at this point.
I know. It feels like it was just the end of July and we were ramping up to start interviews and things like that. And here we are near the end of October. But already a successful season, sitting at 8-1, because I know many people out there both heard people say and said themselves that they weren't sure what we would get out of the Bulldogs this year with such a large graduating class, a lot of talent leaving. But again, sitting at 8-1 with the primary goal in front of you. I know beating Mifflin is one of those as well, but you want to win the league championship.
Right, section championship.
And go undefeated in the
thing.
process.
Right.
In league play, you go undefeated in league play. 9-1 with the Section 1 crown would deem this season an absolute success.
Absolutely.
With postseason still yet to come. So we are all eyes are on that Week 10 game right now. So, all right. Obviously, Friday night was a big one at Gursky Stadium. Not so much for the game itself, but because it was senior night.
Yeah.
And wanted to make sure that we spotlighted the seniors. So I grabbed a few of my photos here from senior night, recognizing the individual, not just the players, but also the cheerleaders, athletic trainers, and managers. Anyone that was is a senior graduating in the class of 2025 was recognized before the game. And I posted this across my Wilson social media platforms, and you can check out all of the senior night pictures. It's a separate album from the game album. So there's 2 albums. I shot almost 1,500 photos Friday night, 400 of them being senior night festivities. So all those were posted. This is just a sampling of them, of some of the players with their friends and families walking them across the field to be honored. Again, the album also includes everything for Wilson cheerleading, the athletic trainers and game managers that were also, or team managers that were also present, and seniors and are moving on after they graduate this coming spring. So congratulations to all the seniors across the board. It was a great night. Good job by the WFPO. It's always great to be taking photographs next to Willie Copeland.
Hey.
He does a fantastic job as well, so make sure you check out his stuff. I know he's been posting his senior night photos as well, so check his out across Facebook and Instagram as well. So, all right, Justin, so last official regular season home game, at least, for the Bulldogs. If you're paying attention last week, we know we're going to have another home game. I don't think there's even a possible way for Wilson to drop out of the top 4, which would guarantee the first round bye into the quarterfinal round, and then Wilson would have a game at Instashine Car Wash Field on Friday, November 8th, even if they lose to Manheim Township. So wasn't the last home game, but it could have been. Unlikely to be that way now.
Right.
Because they took care of business. They did what they needed to do.
They did exactly what we had talked about that they needed to do. They kind of knew. I mean, not kind of. Yeah, they knew what is supposed to happen on Friday, and they just went out and did it. And yes, there were certainly things they need to clean up. However, I felt like a more more clean, more ready to go version than the Friday before at Penn Manor. That might be a little misleading because at Penn Manor, they jumped out quickly, but then just some mistakes here and there. And then they got a couple things going right before halftime, and it was fine. It was never in doubt, but like it just it wasn't all great. Although even then, like once they got moving again it was like they got going and then they stalled. But then once they got back into gear and got going at Penn Manor, there was no stopping it at all. I felt like they got going and they really did perfectly fine on Friday night, even though there were still some hiccups here and there, but like nothing major. I don't know. Did we turn the ball over at all?
On Friday night?
Right, on Friday. I don't know that we did.
I'm going to double check. I don't think we did. But...
Right, so like, that helps.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay, yeah. So I don't, like just having like that kind of aspect probably plays into it a bit, But yeah, they were ready to go, offense and defense, right from the start, and that they got it in there, handled their business rather quickly and efficiently, and were able to get lots of guys in there. I know, I don't know you, and honestly, you're probably the one that would need to check on this in terms of like as a reference. But like I've heard people asking, like, is it a record that 8 different players scored a touchdown?
Oh, okay, that's not where I thought you were going with that.
Okay, and it has to be up there. Like right when you go to 8 touchdowns, that drops the number of possible games way down. And 8 touchdowns by 8 different players is kind of absurd.
Right. So I mean, immediately you have to consult all games would have to score at least 40. You'd have to have at least 48 points.
Yes.
So any game scored less than that would be immediately disqualified. So you could narrow that down. It would be interesting to see 8 different people, because obviously Wilson scored 48 plus points probably many
times. Lots of times.
I know getting up into the 50s and especially the 60s, it's much more rare.
Right.
But then you're also taking into account a different individual scoring each of them, because a lot of those games feature multiple touchdowns by many players. Like I'm sure there were touchdown games where 2, 3, or 4 of them were scored by Pete Gilmore or Iggy Reynoso.
Exactly.
Or Andy Lajado had 9 in a 5-day period, 2 different games. But so that's interesting. 8.
Right.
8 individuals. That could be the record. So I thought you were going to ask me if it was a record for points in a quarter.
Gosh, I almost
Justin's just
knocked
destroying
everything off the table. Oh my gosh!
I thought you were going to ask me if it was points scored in a quarter, and I think Wilson scored 35
against
in
Penn
a quarter
Manor,
at least twice.
I
know we did in 2015.
Yeah,
it was 35-0 after the first quarter at Gursky against Penn Manor.
That's the one I remember.
I believe that may have happened a few other times. I don't believe Wilson's ever scored more than 35 in a quarter. Again, that's something
it's hard to do.
It's also hard to track down over the course of 80 seasons now, especially those earlier seasons.
Where's your commitment, Joe? No,
hey, I'm not saying it's not ever going to happen, but
just yet.
I don't have all that information yet. But Wilson raced out to a 28-0 lead here in this one. The Bulldogs started with the ball. They received the kick. And just kind of moved down the field at will, both of their own accord and also with help from the defense. McCaskey had some offside penalties or encroachment penalties. Wilson moved down the field. Corell Akings, Maddox Gruber, couple passes here and there, and then finally it was a pass that ended up getting Wilson on the board first. It was a nice little wide screen again that we saw work so well against Governor Mifflin a few weeks ago. Gruber to Carpenter, 28 yards for the score. Hunsaker's kick is good. Wilson's up 7-0. Then Wilson forced a 3-and-out, and then the punter misplayed the snap, or it was a bad snap over his head, and recovered by, I believe it was Malachi Tolles. Wilson then scored on the next play when Corell Akings took it 18 yards for the score. Kick is good. Wilson's up 14-0. and we still have 8:51 left to play in the first half. Wilson forces another punt, and this one is returned into McCaskey territory. Bulldogs start after a penalty. It just takes a few more plays when Maddox rushes for 3 yards to get the touchdown. And that came just after another pass from Gruber to Carpenter, who made a fantastic leaping extension grab over the middle.
It was crazy. I mean, it's always great to score, but I thought Jaden's better play was that catch.
Yeah.
Like, that was a great catch. And it wasn't a bad throw. It's just it was a hard throw on the line, and he went up and got it, but still kept running and almost got down there for another score.
He was tackled at the 3, I think. So yeah, Gruber to Carpenter sets up Gruber's rushing touchdown. So quickly, with about 6 minutes to play in the first quarter, Wilson's up 21-0. Things went back and forth here. Wilson forces another 3 and out. Wilson drives but stalls after they miss a field goal wide right. McCaskey takes over, has to punt again. Wilson gets the ball back. And Monty Greer takes it after a false start penalty by Wilson. He goes 34 yards for the touchdown. Extra point is good, and Wilson's up 28-0. McCaskey gets the ball. We end the first quarter there at 28-0. McCaskey continues the ball, gets a little bit gains a little bit of yards here. Doesn't have a 3 and out, but still isn't able to do too much. Wilson forces the punt. Bulldogs start the next series, and immediately Maddox Gruber completes a pass to Christo Hunsiger on the second play. 40-yard score. I believe that's Christo's first touchdown.
I believe it was. Yes.
He's helped other people get into the end zone,
right.
But he gets into the end zone himself on this one, so that one had to feel good, and he added the extra point. Wilson's up 35-0. Then there's a fumble on the next McCaskey series, forced by Mel. Recovered by, who was that? It says Jackson Becker recovered it. So Wilson is...
Yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah, yep. Mel forced it, and Jackson Becker recovered it. Wilson gets the ball back, and Wilson's now...
Jackson was flying around on Friday night.
He was. Wilson is now into backups and JV players, and the Bulldogs still couldn't be stopped. They get a dose of Mason Young and Amir Bailey, who ends up getting the 1-yard touchdown to go up 42-0. Eventually, McCaskey fails their next series on downs on an incomplete pass defense by Damian Greer. Wilson gets the ball back but fumbles. McCaskey takes over. They attempt a field goal as we get closer and closer to the end of the second quarter and halftime, but their field goal attempt is blocked, and this time it's blocked by Amir Bailey, who was flying all over the field all night when he had his opportunities on offense and defense, and that's not the last time you're going to hear his name tonight. Wilson got a play or two off before halftime, but went into the halftime leading 42-0. Immediately, the Wilson backups and JV start the second half. They force a turnover on downs from McCaskey. The Wilson JV offense strolls down the field and gets another score. This time it's Mason Young from 24 yards out. Mark Sneege gets the extra point, and Wilson's up 49-0. The next McCaskey series, Aiden Kramer comes up with an interception.
Yeah.
So I think a bunch of Bulldogs wanted it, and he's the one that came down with it. So Aiden Kramer gets the turnover here in the third quarter. Wilson offense starts. We've been in running clock now, and eventually the third quarter ends with Wilson up 49-0. A couple plays into the beginning of the fourth quarter, Cole Peterson connects with Jackson Becker for a big touchdown to go up 56-0. Finally, McCaskey gets some points on the board on their next possession. It only takes them 4 plays to go 27 yards. I believe they had a nice kickoff return by DeAndre Jones. He went 57 yards to set it up at the Wilson 27. And 4 plays later, so on 4th and 10, they were able to finally get on the board 56-7. And then Wilson would just run out the clock from there, or most of the clock from there. McCaskey had one more shot, got a couple more plays in, but that was all she wrote. So Wilson wins 56-7, and like you said, Justin, 4 different touchdown scores for the Bulldogs. Corell Akings led the way rushing. He gained 88 yards and a score. Mason Young was next with 40 rushing yards and a touchdown. Monty Greer had 37 rushing yards and a score. Maddox Gruber, 20 rushing yards and a touchdown. And let's see, 6 more players carried the ball for Wilson, including D'Angelo Manzanillo, Tyler Ulrich, Amir Bailey, who also scored a touchdown, Cole Peterson, Jackson Becker, and Matthew Wyatt. 3 quarterbacks played in the game. Maddox Gruber was 3 for 7, 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cole Peterson was 3 for 3, 63 yards and a score. Mason Young was 2 for 2 with 31 yards passing. And Jackson Becker actually led the way in receiving yards with 64 and a score. Jaden Carpenter had 2 for 45 and a touchdown. Christo had the big one for 40 yards and the score. And then Eli Dean, Aiden Zerkovich, and Nunapali also had receptions on the night. Defensively, Justin, a lot of people contributed since so many different people played. Yes. I think it looks like is it close to mid to upper 20s in the number of Wilson Bulldogs contributing on the defensive stat sheet.
Yeah,
Cam Zulinger did lead the way with total tackles with 4, 3 of them for loss. Amir Bailey was next at 3.5, 2.5 of those being for loss. He had the block kick and a sack. Chase Herb, 3 tackles along with Cole Peterson. Christo Hunsaker had 2. Brady Klein had 2.5, including a sack. Brady and Mel forced fumbles. Mel and Jackson Becker recorded fumbles. Aiden Kramer had an interception. A whole bunch of pass breakups, including 3 by freshman Damian Greer. So a lot of players flying all over the place. And like people have said, and we said Friday night, the game was over by the second quarter.
Yeah,
and we just went through the stats and the rundown. The starters could come out and give time to deserving seniors, backups, and the JV eventually.
And 2 games in a row. So
and they all played really well. So because we've seen in
both
the years
weeks.
past, right?
Both
we've
weeks.
seen in years past the backups or the JV don't have it together,
right?
And the starters are blowing them out, and they come in and they give up a bunch of touchdowns.
And we've talked about this a number of times. Any and all reps you can get those guys. Are meaningful.
Huge boost
because
for next year.
One, you never know when you're going to need a guy to step in, even if it's for a play or 2 or anything like that. An example, just like look at the Cheltenham game when Maddox cramped up and we need, just a play or 2, and they were able to put Cole in then. You never know like when you're going to need somebody at a DB spot or a line. Just getting guys some reps so that the first time they're seeing it isn't when you need it. You know what I mean? Like that they can, just grow so much. And here at the end of the season, it also let our starters play basically 3/4 of football over the last 8 and going into your biggest game of the season. Yep. Hey, they should be like as rested as you're going to be at this point in the season. They got a big task ahead of them, but they handle their business against McCaskey, which is what you want them to do.
So the Bulldogs were able to hold McCaskey to negative net yards rushing at -63. Bulldogs gained 227. Also had 17 first downs to McCaskey 7. Did give up passing yardage, so unfortunately this week, Justin, McCaskey did end in the positive side of the total offensive yards. They threw for 124, so their net offensive yards were 61, whereas the Bulldogs had 406, and again, that was with over 2.5 quarters with backups and JV in. So it could have been way worse than it was. Possession time, honestly, McCaskey actually ended up having the ball more than Wilson. Didn't really have to worry about 3rd and 4th down conversions. Wilson did score 3 out of 4 times in the red zone, and they had 5 sacks and gave up none. 8 for 8 on kicks. Did miss a field goal. I believe it hit the uprights, did it not? Christo's, yeah. It crushed the upright.
Might have
so
bent
very
it.
close. Very close for Christo to get a field goal there as well. And that's another thing that you can't undervalue as a playoff time approaches, that Christo has the leg. He has made multiple field goals this year. That one, unfortunately, did ding off the uprights. But all right, Justin. So it was an interesting game to talk about in terms of our player of the week, because a lot of the starters didn't play a lot. And when they did, it was so evenly distributed amongst everyone, kind of trying to figure out where it should go.
Right.
But there was someone that played a lot over the last 2 weeks, especially this Friday night, and made an impact on the stat sheet. And you could feel the emotion through the game of this individual and his contributions. And our player of the week for the Game 9 win versus J.P. McCaskey is senior running back and linebacker Amir Bailey. You heard me say he blocked that field goal. He had a touchdown. He was the second leading tackler. So a great...
Had that huge sack when we were still trying to preserve the shutout.
Trying to preserve the shutout, yeah.
McCaskey was deep in our territory, and he had like maybe an 18-yard sack or something like it.
I believe
it was incredible.
I believe while the backups in JV were playing, they allowed McCaskey down into the red zone or close to it 3 times, and only ended up surrendering the touchdown on the final one. The first 2, they drove him back and forced turnovers on down.
Yeah.
And one of those drives was Amir Bailey was all over the field.
Yes.
So
great
game from Amir. And, well, actually, he joined us post-game with a few of his other senior teammates. And I think it's about time we hear from them. So congratulations to Amir for earning the Bulldog Hour Player of the Week for the win against McCaskey. And now we're going to take a listen to some senior player interviews post-game after the victory against McCaskey. All right, we're joined post-game now after Wilson's 8th victory this season in Game 9 here against McCaskey on senior night, and we're joined by some of our seniors here after the game. First, congratulations, guys, on another win and a successful senior night for you. How's it feel?
It's great. Everyone contributed. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, no slow start tonight. You guys got out in a big way, up 42-0 at halftime. A resounding success, although, I mean, a little bit of a failure on defense, gave up positive yardage this week. So, there's a little bit to work on this week. You gave up 61 total yards. So, what are we, net 30 yards over the last 2 weeks. So, I think Coach Wolver's got a little bit of work to do with you guys. But, hey, another victory. You're sitting right where you need to be. You are ready for Manheim Township this coming Friday, 1 week from now, in the LL Section 1 Championship. What do you expect practice to be like this week?
Very focused practice for sure. Focus for sure. Everybody locked in. No messing around. It's going to be very serious practice. Everyone playing their part. Got to master the game plan. Absolutely.
But what do you think the game plan is going to be like? What do you expect the coaches to find in Manheim Township that you think you can take advantage of?
Different formations, like showing, different blitzes and stuff. Just film on them. Taking the things they do, tendencies.
Yeah, we're going to go over some film on Sunday, and we'll see what we got then.
Amir, we've been seeing you a lot the last 2 weeks, making plays, offense, defense, all over the place. I know last week, because the stat sheet didn't say you had the sack, you were giving grief to my buddy over here. So you had another great game again tonight. What's it like playing on this field, playing with your teammates, your classmates? What's it like the last 2 weeks?
It doesn't feel real at all. Playing with my boys is like, just being out there in general, just being on the field, just gives you a whole different energy. It's just, I don't know how to explain it.
We're all brothers.
Absolutely. Family.
Yeah, you're cheering on the seniors here tonight, your group here, but also then the guys coming in after you left the field. Talk about the JV there at the end of the game last week and this week. What's it like to have them show success like the starters have?
I mean, it's honestly awesome because they watch us at practice, they help us get better at practice, and then they get to go on Friday night and show what they got, which is pretty awesome. It's just how hard they're working against the marks to get better and prove it here.
Cam, coming in this year, didn't know you'd be playing offensive line, and I heard you volunteered to move because you wanted to play.
Yeah.
And here you are now, a starter on the offensive line. What's it been like this year for you?
It's been really a blessing. I really love it. I really wasn't gonna play much at tight end, so really had to do it. The team needed best. So.
Similar role to your former position coach,
Pat Zerbe was a H-back tight end type guy, and then he moved. I believe he actually wore the same number as you when he was playing.
Yeah, he was happy when I switched to 55.
All right, guys, I know you want to go over, see some family, celebrate your senior night victory. So thank you for joining us, and good luck next week at Manheim Township.
Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. 4 of the seniors caught up with us after the victory. It was fun to talk to a few of them because I don't know that we got to talk to at least Cam and Amir before. Did we talk to Anthony yet this year? I can't
don't know
remember.
if we pulled the offensive line. I don't think we have.
We haven't yet. Hey, you know, it would be a great time to talk to them.
I would love to talk. I would love to have any player interviews next Friday night.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so usually we try to get the 5 starting linemen to talk to us after a game. Haven't done that
No
yet.
time better than Friday.
Yeah, it was great to talk to those guys. You know, Christo's always great. We talked to him a few times, but it was fun to talk to Amir, Cam, and Anthony. And hey, you know, you said it while we were watching that. It's great to see some seniors step up into big roles and have a great season, and that's definitely what Cam Cook has been able to do, as you heard in that interview. You know, he just wanted to play, wanted to contribute, and he found a spot.
And to roll it back to summer interviews, right? We heard repeatedly from lots of people in the coaching interviews and in the player interviews on how one of the points of emphasis was to kind of make sure like that there was depth and that they were rolling, like lots of people were contributing, you know. Now you can want that all you want. Guys need to step up and make it happen. And they're sitting at 8-1 because that has happened. Like guys have stepped up everywhere, like from the top down, you know, Maddox all the way down to the guys who are coming in and making the most of every opportunity they've got. You know, we mentioned it there. We interviewed Cam, right? Cam wasn't even projected to play offensive line, let alone contribute on the offensive line. And here he is. Why? Because he knew that's what the team needed, and he wanted his chance to play. Like, that attitude contributes to, like...
It can help make good teams great.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, yeah. It's huge. And that mentality is contagious, and it seems to be widespread. That's just an example. But, yeah, it's awesome. And it's awesome to see. And, hey, hopefully your best football is ahead of you. But, again, you can do lots to prepare, but the guy's got to go out there and do it.
All right, so that is it for the regular season home slate. First 9 games done. Wilson sits at 8-1. Big one coming up this Friday night, October 25th, down in Neffsville against the Manheim Township Blue Streaks. They sit at 9-0, also 5-0 in league play, just like your Bulldogs. Fairly similar teams. Manheim Township, at least by the score sheet, stingier defense, surrendering just 69 points in 9 games so far. Bulldogs have given up 116 in 9 games. Teams closer in offensive output. Township has scored 352 points to Wilson's 339. Both of them are by far and away above everyone else in Section 1, obviously, as they both sit undefeated as well. Cedar Crest is behind them next at 4-2. They have a non-league game to end the season this coming week, I believe actually Thursday night against Lebanon. So they're more than likely going to finish 7-3, 4-2 in the league, though Hempfield did give them a scare on Friday. And it's interesting because both those teams could make the bottom part of the playoffs and they could end up playing each other again. So we'll see what happens with them. But Wilson Township, the big one coming up here in just a few days. The big story for Manheim Township is really twofold. One, you know that they lost their big quarterback-receiver combo, and Hayden Johnson and Landon Kennel both playing in college football stadiums on Saturdays right now.
Hayden Johnson's year last year was just absolutely absurd.
Absurd,
like,
yeah. It's well, I mean, it says it right here. This is an article written by Jason Gorante for LancasterOnline.com, part of LNP, and he says Township lost some of the greatest skill players in Lancaster-Lebanon League history to graduation. Yeah. The passing game was virtually unstoppable with them. But despite losing them, they're a program that has no longer. They've always reloaded. They don't rebuild or need to have a refresh or a down year. They're ready to go the next year, led by Coach Mark Evans. And one of the things that was pointed out to me this summer before the season really even began by actually one of our anonymous donors said maybe this is some bulletin board material. But Jason from LNP said that Manheim Township is the new Wilson. They are what Wilson used to be. Right. That's what he said. And I made sure some people knew about that statement and putting it out there right now. Here's the actual quote from the article. Township has built one of the most consistent programs in the league and has supplanted Wilson as the perennial favorite in Section 1.
Hey.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. I don't have anything else to add to that. So we talked about Johnson and Kennel leaving. The problem for opponents has been they returned all 5 offensive linemen.
Yes.
That's generally a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
When you have an entire offensive line coming back.
And when we talk to people who, this is, after most of the non-league slate early on, they were like, it shows. It shows. They're like, they were dominating people in the trenches from the start. And a lot of times it takes teams a little bit of time to gel there. Nope. They just were crushing teams from the start. And
including Cumberland Valley, 42-14, Central York, 28-10, York William Penn, 42-0, and then went toe-to-toe with Plymouth Whitemarsh like Wilson did, both Wilson and Township winning against PW, Township winning 20-18.
Yeah. Plymouth Whitemarsh's only losses on the season, they are 7-2.
Correct.
Are to the 2 teams that are a top Section 1 in the LL League.
Plymouth Whitemarsh lost to Wilson in Game 2, 21-7, and Plymouth Whitemarsh lost to Manheim Township 20-18. But other than that, are unblemished. Have won all their other games. Manheim Township's only real close call was to Plymouth Whitemarsh 20-18. Central York, they won by 18, 28-10. But all the other ones were big blowout victories. They also have 4 shutouts on the season. And we know the Bulldogs got one against Penn Manor a couple weeks back. And we're close to getting one against McCaskey this week. So both teams are clicking and ready to go, and exactly what many thought we'd see in Week 10. So the 5 offensive linemen coming back for Township are Spencer McClintock and Tom Capizzi. They're the tackles. McClintock plays left tackle. Owen Marks is their center, with Will Milazzo and Greg Gillespie at guard. So those 5 guys are keys to this game as they break in some new skill position players throughout this season. Obviously, they're established now and are looking pretty good. And they're led now offensively by Carson Weiser. He's 90 for 144, 90 completions on 144 attempts for 1,562 yards, 22 touchdowns to 1 interception.
Well, is that that's like 1 interception in the last 2 years?
In the last 2 years, because last year Hayden Johnson didn't throw a single interception. He has a quarterback rating of 136. Declan Clancy is the big name to pay attention to. He is their bell cow running back.
You won't miss him. He'll make his presence known.
192 rushing attempts, 1,472 rushing yards. He's averaging over 7.5 yards per carry, and he has 17 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Just a couple other guys that have gotten some rushing attempts, including Jake Arcudi. He has 203 yards and 2 touchdowns, and quarterback Carson Weiser has 46 yards and a score. Receiving, it's been Lex Haberbosch with 22 catches for 525 yards and 8 touchdowns. Darius Dixon, a junior, is a big name to watch. He has 19 catches for 363 yards and 6 scores. Charlie Hill, 10 catches, 240 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Declan Clancy out of the backfield has 13 catches and 2 touchdowns. Again, they had to replace most of their offensive skills, not just at quarterback and wide receiver. Kind of a bunch of their other guys were gone. So there was a lot of unknowns there.
Yeah, of those names, Declan Clancy is the
biggest one. Yep.
From years past.
Sure.
But they've had other guys, like you said, they just reload. And so they've had other guys step into those positions and been very successful all year. But Declan Clancy is the most likely to be the one that you had heard of making waves in previous seasons.
Yeah, I believe did he miss much of last year, Clancy?
I don't remember.
Or was it 2 years ago?
I don't remember. It's one of those where I'm like, oh, he's back.
I feel like
again.
he's been there forever,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes.
So he is the big guy. He is the one that Wilson's going to need to shut down and then respect the passing game. They do like to run the ball with those 5 veteran offensive linemen. Clancy, bruising back, and he maybe even better linebacker than he is running back. Which crazy to say, as he has 1 game left to go in the regular season, has nearly 1,500 rushing yards.
Right.
But he may be a better linebacker than he is running back.
Right.
So a lot of experience there for the Blue Streaks, even despite the graduation losses of the big names in Hayden Johnson and Landon Kennel, but. Definitely not a team to take lightly.
No. And like the thing is, like we say this, and it's there for Wilson, but this is the best team we've faced all year. And it's, I don't want to say it's not close, but there's a distance. Like this is the best team that we've seen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they stack up to Plymouth Whitemarsh and Nazareth, because I think those are very
Wilson's
good other games that obviously Wilson lost to Nazareth. Had an opportunity to win that one. And
I think the quarterback from Nazareth is probably the best player I've seen all year.
You're probably right.
However, I can say without even seeing it, I think Manheim Township is going to be better across the board than Nazareth was. Does that make sense?
No, I completely understand that. Well,
he made up for a lot in Nazareth. He made up for a lot of, I don't want to say deficiencies, but a lot of the ups and downs that are at position by position there. Whereas there aren't many downs at Township. Like it's strong across the board.
Now, the only game that Township was really tested against Plymouth Whitemarsh at Plymouth Whitemarsh in Game 4, they forced. Township still had to win with the ground game. Township wants to run with Clancy. He had 33 of their 40 rushing attempts, 186 yards and a touchdown. Carson Weiser is a very good quarterback, was 10 of 16 for 113 yards and a touchdown. So they wanted to keep the ball on the ground, turn the clock. So if you stop that and make them go up top, good things might be able to happen. But that's not to say they can't throw the ball, because
they've had success
Weiser
there
to
too.
Haberbosch and who's the other receiver I just mentioned? Darius Dixon, yeah. I wanted to say Julius for some reason. Darius Dixon. Haberbosch and Dixon are dangerous. The 41 receptions for 888 yards and 14 touchdowns. So they can make it happen. But it's going to come down to, can Wilson defensive line stack up to the Township returning starters along the O-line? Can the linebackers bring down Clancy? And can the defensive backs stay vigilant and aware of what Weiser can do if you give him time and Clancy's not able to get going? So it should be an interesting matchup across the board, but 2 very strong teams. Should be a good one in Nessville. I texted you, Justin, the other day. Wilson actually has done fairly well down at Nessville of late.
Right.
Since Wilson lost 2 games in 2017 to the Blue Streaks to end the regular season.
Was that the year we stopped
streak
afterwards?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wilson lost at Township like 2 times in 4 weeks, I think it was, because it wasn't the last game of the season.
No,
it was like week 8 or 9.
I say fairly new. It's been a few years,
Yeah.
but like we're old, so it feels like it's fairly new that Township is the last game of the season.
Yeah, I think
now.
this is the 4th time it's. Well, it was supposed to be, because then 2020 was
weird, right?
Yeah. So, anyways, 2017 Wilson went to Nessville twice, lost both of those games to Manheim Township. Went back in 2018 when things got flipped around oddly because of the reorganization
we
of the
played
league.
there like 3 times in like 13 months.
Yeah, and we went back there in 2018, but won that game in Nessville. Then went down there during the COVID year, and actually that was the league opener where Wilson went down with 4 or 5
that was
two-way
a crazy
starters
one,
injured
right.
and not playing, and Wilson ends up winning that game in 2020. Then in 2022, we go down there and beat them at their place.
Right.
Of course, flip side, they've been able to have success at Gursky Stadium of late, winning in 2019 and last year in 2023. So if you're into trends and analysis and stuff like that, I don't know if that tells you much. All I know is it should be a fantastic game with the Section 1 championship on the line.
Let's have regression to the mean next year.
Right. Yeah. So we continue the away game victory this year, but then all of a sudden the home team starts winning next year. I'm good with that.
Right.
That's what we want to see. So, all right. We've got about 15 minutes here, Justin, and I think we're late enough in the season now to really dive into the playoffs.
I told you, I have been fielding more playoff questions than ever before. And that is solely because of my association with you, and people know that you can math.
So I will now pull up. Let me transition it over on the screen for those of you watching us live, which we appreciate if you check out Wilson Bulldogs Football on YouTube.com and subscribe there. And also follow Justin and myself and the show everywhere, Wilson Bulldogs Football, or Bulldog Hour across Facebook, Twitter, X, and Instagram. All right, so power rankings. This is where we're at. Actually, I'm going to give this a quick refresh because it's been up since this afternoon. Maybe some of the teams actually did what they're supposed to and enter their results, and they did because Manheim Township had not. So their number was not accurate. We're pretty good here now. It looks that.
McCaskey hadn't entered it, but we had entered against McCaskey.
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple of things off right now, but that gives you by and large the gist of it.
Right. It's also hard because not every team played 10 games that count into power rankings.
Right. Including Penn Manor missed a game.
Central York
played
this week.
An Archbishop Hoban out of Ohio, so that doesn't count in the power ratings. But this gives you a good idea. So remember, the cutoff is at 10. So right now, the last team in would be Chambersburg. But there's a game left, and I'm going to show you my calculations here shortly, but I just want to show everyone where the power ratings are at officially from District 3. Township's on top. Wilson is next, followed by Central York and Harrisburg. That's your top 4. Those would be the 4 home teams in the second round after the play-in round. CD East and Dallastown, their last 2 in that are guaranteed spots and having a bye. Then 7, 8, 9, and 10 are Cedar Crest, Governor Mifflin, Cumberland Valley, and Chambersburg. They would be in the play-in round, 7 versus 10 and 8 versus 9. That would be on November 1st. So that checks out there, Justin. I think that looks about right. At Chambersburg, I believe, finishes with a tough game, so it's going to be hard for them to hold on to that 10 spot. Interesting that Cumberland Valley, coming off a win against Harrisburg, lost this week, which severely impacts their chances of making it. They'll need to win this coming week to make sense of it. So where are we going with the power ratings with Week 10 results, with the 10th game for those that are playing 10 games? Now, remember, I have to predict all of these games head-to-head, including all of the teams scheduled that are on the schedule for all 22 teams in District 3 6A. So there's a lot of games I have to predict. And a few changes here and there could alter these things. But I do a pretty good job of guessing who's going to win based on the information provided. And we are going to start here because they're ranked in front of Wilson. I'm going to first show you my projections of the District 3 6A power ratings if Township wins on Friday, since they're sitting at number 1 right now. So if Township wins over Wilson on Friday, coupled with other projections that I have.
Right, and one of the things that I tried to emphasize to people was that literally half of the variables go away after this past weekend because there's half as many predictions to make now.
Right. Yes. So we're honing in on a final result. My biggest takeaway from this, Justin, is Hempfield making the field at 4 and 6, and we talked about it last week. Because of their difficult strength of schedule, they get a bump. So even if Chambersburg, I'm not sure if this is the case, Chambersburg or Cedar Cliff wins 5 games, Hempfield's 4 wins and 6 losses are deemed stronger than Chambersburg or Cedar Cliff's would be. Hempfield gave Cedar Crest a run for their money, though, on Friday, and maybe they're starting to turn the corner. We'll see. So they could get to play each other again if this plays out. So Manheim Township at 1, Central York at 2. Those teams would be guaranteed home field through the quarterfinals and semifinals. Wilson and Harrisburg would get a home quarterfinal game. Dallastown and CDS would be in the field but would have to travel in the quarterfinals. And then Cedar Crest would host Hempfield, and Mifflin would host Cumberland Valley. The 7-10 matchup is linked with the 2 seed. So the winner of the 7-10.
There's no reseeding. We went through this a few weeks ago.
Right. 7 and 10, the winner goes to Central York, and 8 and 9, the winner of Mifflin and Cumberland Valley would go to Manheim Township. Again, this is with a Game 10 win by Manheim Township over the Bulldogs this coming Friday. Of course, I have another slide with Wilson winning.
The one you're hoping for.
The one I want to happen, yes, absolutely. Now, nothing else is changing except for Wilson beating Township in these projections. So you can see, I think the only thing that switches is Wilson goes to 2 and Central York drops to 3. However, the power rating difference over the last few weeks between Township and Wilson has decreased. The distance between them has decreased because Wilson's opponents have been doing very well, including Nazareth, Cheltenham, Plymouth Whitemarsh, and Governor Mifflin. Those teams winning are very important to us. So we need them to win this week as well if we would want Wilson to have a chance to overcome Manheim Township and get the 1 seed. I think it's probably not going to happen because first, obviously, Wilson has to win. That's the big, take care of your own business.
Right.
Guarantee yourself home field until the district championship where no one has home field. Right. Because unlike the last few years, the District 3 6A championship, I believe actually all District 3 championship games are all at neutral sites.
Right.
We don't know where they are yet.
Right. TBD, but it says it in the memo, the 2024 memo on the District 3 site. It also says it on the brackets. Yeah, and I checked that a couple times. Yeah, so that championship game, and who knows? I do not know if that will mean it is dependent on who wins. You know, like I know sometimes in basketball it's dependent on who wins, but I know over the last decade or so too, it has also become a big, maybe even bigger, actually absolutely bigger factor is who is able and willing to host.
Right.
That's a whole different scenario.
So they may announce that before the semifinals, like they don't even know the two teams.
I would think they would have teams lined up or places lined up, but I don't know that.
But there's a lot involved to do that. But you can say I pulled out the memo that Justin's referencing. You can see it right there under game sites. The home sites of higher seeded teams in all classifications will be used for all games through the semifinals in the tournament. District final contests will be played on a neutral field assigned by the district committee. So
that would be a great problem to have to worry about. Right. Where that game is,
and that only matters for the 1 and 2 seeds to get home field all the way through. Right. So you essentially are guaranteed 2 home games should you continue to win through quarterfinals and semifinals. If you're 3 and 4, you're only guaranteed 1 home game. If you're 5 or lower, you're not guaranteed any home games except for the 2 play-in rounds. The teams that are seeded 7 and 8 have the play-in round home field advantage. All right, and we can take a look at, so here again, I'll throw it up again, the power ratings with a Game 10 win by Wilson. Not quite enough to get up to the 1 seed, but again, because the 1 seed isn't hosting the district championship, it means far less than it did over the last few years when the home field was used throughout the bulk of the district championships. We got used to get to play the district championship at Hershey Park, which was awesome. That has changed and no longer is occurring. So we'll find out where the neutral field is for the District 3 6A championship. Hopefully that matters to us in a few weeks, Justin.
Yep, exactly. That would be a great problem to have to worry about where that game's going to be.
And I do have here, let's pull up the actual bracket and we can move around on the bracket. As you can see, Friday, November 1st is the play-in round. That is seeds 8 and 9 and seeds 7 and 10 down there.
How happy are you that it does not look like we will be going to Harrisburg on Saturday, November 2nd?
Oh, I was not allowing that to happen, Justin. That was not happening. So Wilson sits right now at the 2, could finish at 2 or 3 depending on the outcome of the game on Friday, and it would be great to be that 2 seed, Justin. To be opposite some of those other teams.
Well, and also just what that means,
Right.
meaning it would mean a section championship most likely. It would
Right.
mean
It would.
right. So like it means all these these other things. It would be checking another box, but also setting yourself up with the best possible path forward. And that's. Hey, we're at that time of year though, and this happens especially now that we have this township game in week 10. Essentially, it's not that our playoffs start because you have more games, win or lose, this week. But the big games start now. There are no more the big games, good teams. It starts now. You have to beat good teams to meet your goals, and that's the reality of it. If you don't have to beat good teams to get your goals, then your goals weren't high enough.
Right.
That's so the goals are high, but that's why you work hard.
So I pulled up my power rating projections. Here again is the Game 10 win by Manheim Township. So the first round games would be Cedar Crest hosting Hempfield and Mifflin hosting Cumberland Valley. And then the round that Wilson would be playing in, Wilson would host CD East, who, if you remember, started the season 7-0, has lost 2 straight, like Justin and I said was likely for them. But they have an interesting one this week. They host Harrisburg on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. So that's a big game for the power ratings and could throw this all out of whack because I have Harrisburg winning that game.
Yeah.
But if CD East would beat Harrisburg, that would obviously change things. So that's another big one to keep an eye out. Obviously, Wilson Manheim Township's huge on Friday night. The other teams that are in position in the power ratings, who do they play? Well, I know that Dallastown is in their rivalry game at Red Lion. Remember, Dallastown is only loss is to Central York in overtime by 1 point. Central York is sitting there at 2 in these projections. So Dallastown is a very strong team. Red Lion, not so much. They are 3-6 on the year. Not looking great. They got their first win since middle of September, just this last week against Northeastern. So I'd expect Dallastown to win that game. Central York, on the other hand, is also playing a team struggling in York William Penn. Not the strongest Bearcats team we've been accustomed to. They are sitting at 2-6 and just lost by a point to Southwestern. I mentioned Harrisburg plays CD East. Cedar Crest this week plays Cedar Crest plays Lebanon. Lebanon has not won a game in multiple years. I'd expect to see Cedar Crest win that one. Governor Mifflin is a big one for us Wilson fans because, as I mentioned at the start of this discussion, if we want Wilson to continue to climb the power ratings and possibly get even higher, we need our non-league teams to win. Mifflin plays at Ephrata on Friday at 7 o'clock, and we need the Mustangs to win that game. They need that game to possibly stay in the playoffs and to possibly host that opening round game. So Mifflin at Ephrata is absolutely huge for a variety of reasons. That one's Friday night as well. Cumberland Valley goes to Cedar Cliff. Both teams trying to make it into the playoffs. Cumberland Valley's in there right now, but if they lose to Cedar Cliff, they would possibly drop out. So big one for Cumberland Valley there. And Hempfield has a chance to end the season with a win and get into the playoffs when they host Reading on Friday night. So, again, that's the power ratings projections with a Game 10 win by Manheim Township. And I will throw up what could happen with a Game 10 win by Wilson. Again, the only changes are Wilson moves back up to 2, where they are right now after 9 weeks. But the numbers do not count, or the numbers already are in for their Week 10 opponents. All that matters is wins and losses.
Right. Your strength of schedule
is always included.
Right, it's already
for the
included.
entire season.
Right.
So sometimes
it wasn't hurt this past week because we played McCaskey and the week before because of Penn. They were already
because I know we've heard people they think it goes week by week. It does, but only your game result. It takes your opponent's result throughout the year.
There's an advanced
into account.
metric of that called strength of record.
Right.
That's not a high school thing.
Right. So playing a weak team in the last week does not hurt you unless you lose.
Right.
Because you didn't get the points you needed. So I know that can be a little bit confusing, but that's where we're at. Is it going to be perfect? No. Will there be changes? probably, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, Cumberland Valley upset Harrisburg. That was a huge one. That changed a lot of things. It actually was a huge boost to Wilson because Wilson had been sitting at 3-4.
Right.
Now Wilson moved up to 2-3 because Harrisburg lost. And Harrisburg doesn't have an easy one this week with CD East. So a lot could happen. Well, obviously, I'll be running this as I get results in. I'll see what it looks like Saturday morning before a couple Saturday games are played, including that Harrisburg CD East game. And we'll go from there. But Wilson's hosting a game on Friday, November 8th. Who's their opponent? We don't know yet. And if things go the right way, Justin, we won't know for an entire week because they would then be playing a play-in team should Wilson rise to the 2 seed, which would probably mean a Week 10 win at Manheim Township, which is what everyone wants to see. All right, Justin, I think that's it. Anything else from you? Anything you need to add before we get out of here?
No, I think we're good to go. Hey, you have a tall task ahead of you this week. Make sure you get a good week of practice and give it everything you got.
All right, so I see, Justin, you answered the question from Kelly Beck, but I did want to put it out there for everyone. Oh, yeah, this one's being live streamed. This one's been set up since the beginning of the season, and I believe, I'll say it because I believe it. If it changes, I'm sorry, but I think it's part of MikeDragosports.com's agreement with Flagship Network and BNB Media that this game is part of their broadcast package, which had originally been meant to be subscription-based, but has been changed to sponsorship-based and then is free to consume for everyone because of the sponsors.
I heard really good things about it, too.
They had a great broadcast of the Wilson-Mifflin game a few weeks back. They were supposed to do the Wilson-Penn Manor game, but Penn Manor said thanks, but no thanks. But yes, they are 100% in on Wilson-Manheim Township, and I believe I've been talking to Brandon from BNB Media. I believe they're adding an additional camera on top of the production from Mifflin, and I think there'll be at least one play-by-play guy, maybe a second broadcaster. Actually, it might be Mike on that call because I'm sure Mike is going to be at that game, including everyone else around LL. This is going to be a massive game, biggest classification, biggest section in the league, 2 undefeated teams in the league playing for that championship. This is a huge game. So, yes, absolutely, this game will be live streamed, and I believe it will be free. I believe so.
Right.
That's last I knew. So, but that's courtesy of MikeDragosports.com through Flagship Network and set up by BNB Media, which is just, it's been fantastic. So
yes.
I know they've been in contact with Manheim Township School District and the athletic director and are all ready to go for Friday night, and it should be a good one. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the 14th episode of the Bulldog Hour's 10th season. Justin and I will be back in 1 week to recap the game against Manheim Township and preview the District 3-6A playoff field. So thanks for your kind words in the chat. Appreciate everyone watching. But that's it. So for Justin Raffoff and the entire Wilson football program, I'm Joe Mays. And remember, until next time, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.